Help me welcome Mr. Seth Silverton.
Music, that's fabulous. Thank you. Well, let's see if it works. I think it's going to be great. Thank you for putting this together, my friend. Really great. So my name is Seth Silverton, and I'm going to tell you a story tonight that I told once before. Can you hear me? Yes. How about in the back? Everybody good? Okay. So, a little bit of time traveling in this story. My wife, who's here with us this evening, was for a while the marketing manager for a large and fairly reputable auction house here on the MidCoast. And they get a bunch of really great stuff coming through that place. And it was really a great job. It's kind of like, you know, my wife has this amazing ability to be able to find anybody who will be able to buy the most specific collectible item, be it oil painting or Tiffany glass or what have you. So one of the fringe benefits of her working for this auction house was they would have, like, you know, people called in for phone bidding, you know, when there was an auction happening and people would get interested in a specific item. They would have this giant phone bank in the back of the auction house. And so I got to work, like, on the phones, and we would call all over the world or get calls from all over the world with people bidding on these specific items. And this story is about a painting which was attributed to, or in the style of, Michelangelo Merisi de Caravaggio, who was a painter from the 16th century whose influences were Rubens and Rembrandt. And he is largely credited as having been one of the founders of the Baroque movement of painting. No schlub, like Caravaggio was no schlub. Caravaggio died in 1610 largely because he was a royal pain in the ass. Caravaggio was, you know, there were speculations about his sexuality, and he was famous for fighting with people and just being a generally unpleasant individual, but he also happened to be one of the most profound talents in the history of art. So the story goes like this. The auctioneer at this auction house was asked by a large fraternal organization, let's say, that had a lodge in Thomaston, to come in and take a look at two, like, beautiful monumental frames that they had, because they wanted to sell these frames to raise some money for the lodge. One of them had a title, "The Sacking of Jerusalem," and it was really big, kind of like 4 feet by 6 feet, and it was like this ghastly, horrific scene of, like, carnage, and it wasn't done particularly well. It was almost as if the artist, like, wanted to show, like, an explosion here and, like, a beheading there and some horses disemboweled. And the other one was similar size, and the librarian listed it as St. John the Baptist as a young boy in recline, in the style of Michelangelo de Caravaggio. And so, knowing that it was in style of Caravaggio, Jessica starts in listing it and finding out who is it that buys, you know, possible styles of Caravaggio. And so the auction, you know, she's sending out emails. Just as an aside, if you happen to find a Caravaggio in your attic, you'd probably be able to sell it for like $100 million. Which is exactly what happened to these priests in Dublin, Ireland, who, like, happened to call this art restorer who they were friends with, and they said, "Hey, listen, we have this monumental painting here in our living room where we all smoke cigarettes and stuff. Would you come over, because it's like brown, because it's got all, like, cigarette smoke stain from eons of priests smoking pipes and tobacco. It's really grungy. How much would it cost to restore this? Because we know you're an art restorer and, you know, you were an altar boy, etc." And the guy says, he comes over and he looks at it and he says, essentially, "Holy crap, I think this is a Caravaggio." And that painting now sits in the Royal Gallery of Ireland. So back to the Thomaston Lodge. They call this auctioneer and they say, hey, listen, we have these two frames here. And he goes up the stairs and he looks at them and he doesn't think much of it. The first one, as I described, the second one had the Caravaggio imitation, had this tremendous water damage, like going right down the center of it. And so like a lot of paint was missing. And you could see through the paint, there was, it was like basically a portrait of this young boy in a recline, with red robes and stuff and a black background, which is what Caravaggio was famous for. And like underneath the paint, there was like, it looked like really brilliant white plaster on top of the canvas. So nobody really thought anything of it, and the day of the auction comes around, and we're all in the phone bank in the back, and there's like, all of a sudden, there's like unbelievable interest from all over the world in this painting. There was bidders from around the globe, including a guy who lived in the island of Malta who collected Caravaggios, because Caravaggio, aside from being a knight of Malta, spent the majority of his productive time on the island of Malta. Not coincidentally, one of the other bidders was the government of Ireland. And so the bidding starts, and it's all hands on deck. Everybody has a phone. Jessica's on the phone. I'm on the phone. There's 1,000, 5,000, picks up the pace. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, 31, 32, 33. Keeps going up for this crappy frame. This like ornate gold frame. 40,000. 42,000, 43,000, 44,000, 45,000, 50,000. There's like two bidders left. One of them's the guy from Malta, and the other one's the government of Ireland. $53,000, $54,000, $56,000 was the hammer price for this particular painting. So that was odd. 56,000. Obviously somebody knows something about this painting. So the painting sells and everybody claps, yay, $56,000. So the next day, the painting is taken upstairs to the attic in the auction house, and it's kept there under lock and key. And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. I should, probably find out a little bit more about this painting. So I did a little research about Caravaggio, and Caravaggio had one roll of canvas, and it was really specific to him. It had linen threads instead of regular canvas. And the linen, I guess he painted on this linen because he had a specific plaster that he used over the linen canvas. And it was like this white, brilliant Mediterranean sand plaster that he would just slather all over the canvas and then paint from there. So he had this white background and then he would paint black on top of it. And that's how his figure stood out. That's why he was such an important figure in the Baroque period of painting, because it was a completely different style. So apparently the canvas that he used, or the linen canvas that he used, had 9 strands per centimeter. And the plaster that he used was this Mediterranean white sand plaster. And so I went upstairs and I was like, oh, let's check this out. I did a little research. I went upstairs, I looked at it, and I took a little, ruler. I was like, holy crap, that's 9 strands per centimeter. And I looked at the sand, I looked at the plaster, I was like, that's like a brilliant white Mediterranean plaster. That's kind of interesting. So, the next day, this lady shows up at the auction house. She was from the Boston Museum of Art. And her job was to preserve the painting for shipping to the guy who bought it, who happened to be this guy from Malta, right? The collector of the Caravaggio. So she shows up and she lays the painting out, and the guy starts to call like every half hour. He's like, is it ready yet? No, it's not ready yet. Is it ready yet? No, it's not ready yet. And she was the one who invented this technique for shipping, for securing canvas to frame and shipping it overseas. She had this white rice paper kind of stuff, and it was in like 1 and 2 inch squares, and her job was to affix the white paper in 1 and 2 inch squares to the canvas. It had like this adhesive quality to it. And after she did that for this entire frame, she sprayed it with this adhesive that she invented. And right after she sprayed it, she put it in this giant plastic bag and vacuum packed it and sealed it. And when he received the picture in Malta, all he had to do was open it up and expose it to the air, and that adhesive and the paper would just evaporate into the air. And that's how he received the painting. So, all I can tell you about this maybe Caravaggio is that if you think about the history of Thomaston, Thomaston was one of the busiest seaports in the country in the 1800s. And the guy who, how did it get to the Masonic Temple? As it turns out, one of the captains there, one of the sea captains who belonged to the Masonic Lodge, I should say, was a Mason, and he constantly went to Europe. And the theory is that he got it and kind of brought it back and stuck it in the attic. And so to this day, we don't know whether it's a real Caravaggio or not, but it's being restored by a guy in Malta as we speak. And I guess we'll find out soon enough whether it's a $100 million painting or not. But regardless, it's amazing the crap that you can buy in Maine. Thanks very much.